guys, this is the Professor, and what I would like to do today is to shout out to SkogKniv and say thanks for the great idea about the videos The Axe is Back. And so early on you saw some of my axe collection outside. These are all the axes that I could find around the farm, some of which were pretty crude implements that we used to chop holes in the ice so the old cows could get a drink, and some of the ones that Dad always used to go up and down the fence rows, cut the brush out of those. But let me show you now some of my favorite axes, or at least the ones that I'm sentimentally attached to. This little axe here is one of the first that I ever got. I saved up S&H green stamps for weeks and weeks when Mom would go to the grocery store, and then she let me have the green stamps to buy whatever I wanted to. And what I wanted was an axe, my own little axe that I could carry out to the woods to chop up my firewood. And here it is some 50 years later. It's just as worthless now as it was the first day I brought it home, because as you can see there's really no weight at all to the head, and so you can chop as much effort as you want, but it barely makes a nick in any of the pieces of wood that you would like to try. So let's move this off to the side and move on to a couple of better axes. This axe here is probably one of my proudest possessions for 50 years, because this axe was custom made for me by a local blacksmith, Pete Henry. Now, Pete was born in 1886, and he blacksmithed until he was 91 years old. When he was 88, he sort of took me on as an apprentice, and I learned several blacksmithing techniques. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert at it, but I can make some things in the fire, and I enjoy doing it. But this particular axe was custom made by Pete when I was about 10 years old. It's hand forged, and basically for the bit here, it's a bit of a truck spring, a flat truck spring. Around the outside then is wrapped some mild steel, and then in the pole here is a piece of an old rasp. And so this little axe is about 27 inches long. It has a very nice profile. It's very thin, maybe not quite as thin as a Bronsfors Brooks Swedish axe, but this thing has chopped a tremendous amount of wood in its career, and I've done a lot of the chopping with that. Used to use it in the yard when we would have limbs fall out of the tree. We'd chop those up to burn and so on. But I've moved it back out here to the cabin, and I'm hoping now that we'll treat it a little bit more lightly. I've got some other axes, but I'm going to keep this one, I think, as a souvenir of those days. It is a great axe, custom made for me when I was 10 years old. Now, this next little hand axe here also was made by Pete Henry back in the 50s. And it had an interesting history. It had been here on the farm since 1955 or so, but it had the unfortunate occurrence one day to go through the grinding mill, because we used to have corn, ear corn, that we would use to feed the cows. And our hired man, Dinky Jackson's job was to take the corn and chop that up into small bite-sized pieces to give to the cows. Well, Dinky lost the axe in the load of corn, and they could never find it. So they wondered where that little axe could have gone. Well, we found it when it went through the grinding mill. And what happened was it totally ripped the handle off and broke apart where it's welded together over here. And it wasn't until the 1970s, when I took it back to Pete and asked him if he could fix it, that it got back together. Well, Pete just kind of squinted his eyes and he said, well, I made it, so I reckon I can fix it. So he put that in the fire. He welded the bit back together. You can, if you look in here closely, you can see once again where the wrapping of the mild steel around the bit, which is made out of truck spring, is welded together. You can still see a little bit of that in there. And Pete then welded that back together. He tempered it, heated the whole axe head to a red heat. He started dipping it in water just the bit. He said, now watch for the color of the sky. And I looked and I couldn't see any color, but when it was just right, Pete quenched the entire axe head and it was back to perfect. The hardness on it is fine. You can file it, but it's tough to file. It won't take off much metal. So he got the hardness very good. It holds an edge well. It's a perfect weight for a hand axe. And then he reached over, picked up a piece of hickory and another hatchet, and he started chopping away, and soon the handle emerged, which he put on there some 30 years ago. So these are a couple of my favorite axes. I've got other axes here. These are the hardware store axe. They're heavier, they're harder to use, and while I try to use them some here, they're not nearly anything near the handmade axes of Pete Henry. Thanks for watching. Thanks for SkogKniv for developing this thread, and I'll see you soon.